All right, today we're going to be discussing why it's important to do shadow work after dealing with the narcissist. I've been doing this for a while now, coming up on almost 10 years. And a lot of the things that I've learned over this course of time with dealing with the specific topic of narcissistic personality disorder is that when people come across this extreme diabolical disorder, it oftentimes, frequently, it it disorients that person from who they really are. And the recovery stage, I'm just being real candid with you. I've seen people, it's been years after the situation with the narcissist, and the person has yet to fully recover, find themselves, and move on. Right? A lot of times people will tell themselves that they're okay, they're fine. But if one was to look at them who knows them, they can see the difference in the person and can see that they've never really quite returned to the origins of who they really are as a person. Right. And a lot of this deals with subconscious things that are deeply rooted in that person that hasn't been released. Right. Different coping mechanisms that a person takes on that doesn't give them the full expelling of whatever residue was left over by the narcissist. So one of the things I think is very important is shadow work. Carl Jung, who coined all of this, basically implemented. Let's just take a look at what it is. For example, shadow work is basically the process of exploring your inner parts, the inner parts of who you are. These things oftentimes include your fears, your traumas, and more or less the goal, at least, is to the breaking of subconscious behaviors that promote repetitive cycles. A lot of times, and I've heard this throughout the years as well, people will mention that they're a magnet to narcissists, right? They seem to always attract narcissists. Or they oftentimes get the same outcomes. And they can be a multitude of things. It doesn't necessarily have to be in just relationships. This can also be dealing with, friendships, your coworkers, stuff like that. A lot of the same things play up and come up in the mind. This is why, as I said before, this thing for doing shadow work and properly doing it, right, is so important to fully recover. Because most people, after they deal with a narcissist, they haven't returned back to who they were, right? You lose a certain bit of innocence after dealing with a narcissist. And one of the things I find most common is the feeling of, like I said, running into or constantly attracting the same types of narcissistic types over and over again. And the thing is, we want to be able to be able to present our true selves as the full version of ourselves, right? Because this limits, even when it comes to relationships and building healthy new relationships moving forward, many people have a neurotic type of outlook on dealing with people and things after this type of situation. When you have to come to the realization and understanding that most people out here, you're dealing with a bunch of wounded, traumatized people who haven't properly done the right type of healing, who haven't done the right types of work on their inner self, right? To allow them to overcome those past traumas and situations in regards to dealing with people who are narcissistic, or even if it wasn't a narcissistic person, some people who always, let's say, take you for granted. Or there's things done where people don't really appreciate you as much as you should, you feel like you're always being left out. All of these things can be corrected where the outcome is being different or coming out favorable in the likes of what you would like. Most of this, again, lies deep within inside the subconscious. It takes a lot of deep reflective type of work, right? And it does work. It works. I myself, coming out of the narcissistic situation years ago, realized that initially some of the coping methods that I was doing only was like a Band-Aid. It didn't fully put me in the best position to heal and become the fullest version of myself at that time. I had to go through a lot of different phases and levels of understanding years afterwards. If I had the right things to, pinpoint me exactly to where I should have been, I would have moved along a lot faster. And again, in society today, I'll say it again, you have a lot of people who are, basically wounded individuals from different various types of experiences, all coming together and interacting with each other at some point with this unsettled business of correcting the inner conflicts within, the things that make people fearful. Because a lot of times, even when you look at relationships now, you have a bunch of fearful people afraid of being hurt, afraid of being used, afraid of being played by someone else, holding so much back, right? And what I've learned is that one has to be the strength and the balance pillar, the one that is confident, secure in within themselves, to know that they understand boundaries. They don't have to be, overly strict or aggressively putting up the boundaries. You just have to know what it is that you want and how you want it to play about, and how to set the tone for what you're trying to achieve and accomplish. You have to know yourself, though, but you have to be confident and trust in yourself in order to get to that point. These things make a difference, and it will help you along the way tremendously by working on these things, by coming up with different coping mechanisms and the things that create such anxieties within you to always want to step back. Or again, folks, a lot of these stuff is you don't know that you're doing it. It's just normal reaction. It's just you have to be really in tune with your actions and emotions, your feelings. And you have to be really on top of that to understand when you are slipping into that fight or flight, that defense mechanism stage, to where you begin to behave or act in a certain way that comes up to cause these interferences. And likewise with the people who you may deal with. Because it really shouldn't be that hard. But again, if you're dealing with a bunch of wounded people, this is what you're going to get. You're not going to get the full version. But the one who is at least most competent of who they are and operating at their fullest self can feel more in control, to know that they don't have to allow these things to overwhelm them and create such anxieties within. This is a big part of healing from narcissists. A major part. And I'll say it, it's one thing to understand what narcissistic personality disorder is, and it's one thing to be able to identify it. But it's another thing to be able to thrive afterwards in your fullest, complete self, being at a healthy base again. I see many people who are still paranoid and thinking least little thing that everyone is a narcissist afterwards. That is post-traumatic stress, right? That's what is going on, because everyone isn't, necessarily a full-fledged narcissist. But when you go through these things with these individuals, people have a propensity to think that anything that reveals any type of characteristic of that's what it's going to be. I had to learn that down the line. I had to learn different coping mechanisms, different ways to spot and understand, and how to separate, how to differentiate the different types of individuals and people who you come across, and knowing how to properly place them within your life in order, and how to prioritize them, whether you let them in close or you don't, or you gradually allow them to have access, but only if they are staying consistent within respecting your boundaries. These are things that you have to learn. And if you don't properly learn them in that way, you'll just have the knowledge of it, but you still won't be performing at your fullest self. And it will be, it'll still eventually cause issues within your relationships, within your friendships, and so forth. So, and I want to do something I want to share and give to you all, like years of work compiled that I've used to help overcome these things and to be at a point of just, peace and contentment and unafraid, right? Because the main thing, no one wants to feel or put themselves in a situation of feeling that feeling of being hurt or embarrassed or used or abused, feel like a clown, feel like a fool. No one wants to go through that again. But there is a way to where you can be confident in your relationships, have the emotional health, become, more creative, expressing your creativity again and being self-confident and having the strength and changing and being more precise and understanding of the perception of the world. There's a way to get back to that where you become more of a complete individual again without having to push a hard line or an extreme to being one way or another because of what experience you've had with one individual or maybe more. But I say this because it's important, because over these years I just see a lot of people who have just remained stuck after this. Now, granted, there's a lot of people who've moved on, but there's a lot of people who could benefit from shadow work and understanding something to bring them through, walk them through it, understand how to get back to yourself and follow the guidelines of being that way so that you're not, so that you're not in a space of this kind of hopelessness. Right? I don't believe that every person is inherently bad. I think that things and circumstances and situations come about, or sometimes the way they were raised, that put them in a position to be more subjected to being a certain way. But I do want to bring that. I want to speak on this because I feel it's important. And I'll probably be bringing some more information and stuff up about shadow work. But just consider what I'm saying. That's all I'm asking. Consider. Until next time, have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks. We'll talk soon.